Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD, Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AIH or tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. That company we started back in 2016. It was one of the first pre-transformer generative AI companies. Anyhow, it's with great pleasure that I have Alexis Panagides, who is a CEO and co-founder at mxHero. He's a big picture thinker with proven ability for detailed execution focus, multidisciplinary approach to challenges, strong communication skills, a experienced software developer, team leader, product innovator, and an all-around good guy. So with that, I'd like to bring Alex on board. Hi, Alex. How are you today?
Hello, Gary. Great to see you. Great to be here.
Great to see you too. So, tell me a little bit about it. So, when you went to Whittier Woods and then to the George Washington University, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. So it really just the suburbs of DC on the northern side, which meant a lot of my friends' dads and mothers were diplomats. So we were definitely within the inside the Beltway, but also a lot of them were doctors, right? So we had I myself worked for the World Bank at the beginning of my career in large data, big data analysis. But a lot of my friends were, the parents were doctors working for the NIH, which is National Institutes of Health. So it's a very highly educated community, actually. So I had that privilege of growing up in a pretty nice spot.
Now, did you ever think, wonder what my friend's mom or dad really does for a living?
Actually, there is a lot. There are a few friends. Absolutely.
They don't
Actually,
work at the distributor down in this country, down in South America, do they?
no, and you're very accurate. There were absolutely um, parents. Actually, one of my really good friends' mother was yeah, from India, and she spoke like 16 languages. They have like so many languages on the subcontinent, and she definitely worked for the company. And it was funny, this little old lady you'd never suspect, but she was vital for translating communications. Right. So
Wow, that's
there was,
amazing. So you got the inner
yeah.
scoop.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I had a couple of friends who were, had just come back from attaché work in Moscow, and this was like '86, so this was Cold War, and so it was full on and yeah, interesting times. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So you did that, then you went to George Washington University. Now you got your degree in English and economics. So how in the world do you go from English and economics to going to be a consultant at the World Bank?
Yes, a lot of it's location, location, location. So GW sits. So a lot of people don't know that the largest landholder in DC is the federal government. The second largest landholder in DC is George Washington University. So I was in a fraternity, and it was blocks from the White House. But it's also an intermixed with the World Bank buildings. And then I was doing English literature kind of as a passion. By the way, had already learned programming on my own because back then, that's really all you could do. Um, and But it was just for fun. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to get a job, and I wasn't feeling confident with just the English literature. So I did economics with a specialization in econometrics, which is kind of like the mathematical, statistical version of economics. That was a hook for me to get started at the World Bank. At the World Bank, you had the privilege of working with super large data sets, census data. So I was using like the SAS application software system with mainframes and really generating a lot of big data analysis, looking at population, like human resource, education, nutrition, labor statistics. And it's interesting, this all kind of, like you said, multidisciplinary, um, this all kind of helped as we started approaching AI. Because AI is a mix of the mathematics, but as you know, you need to have good language skills to talk to these models. So it's kind of put us in a good spot with regards to this mix of having the linguistic skills with the computer skills is a handy combination nowadays.
No, that sounds so. You did that. You worked at World Bank. Then how do you go to be a CTO and co-founder at a Vinova? How do you go like you're doing this stuff? You've done some SPSS and SAS and statistical, but how do you go from that to saying, "Oh, I'm going to be the CTO of this company and the co-founder"? And how does that work?
Right. Well, at the time I was looking to transition out of the World Bank. I mean, it's World Bank's one of those places they say is it's good to be from, but being there, it's really bureaucratic. I just wanted to do something a little bit more interesting for me. Um, Went to Brazil, and the idea was to go to Brazil to spend 6 months. Ended up being 20 years. When I went down there,
Now, how
it
was that,
was
Alex, living in Brazil? How was that though?
well, for
Was
all
it
you single
wild?
men, be very careful of going down to Brazil because I went down for 20 years, came back with a wife and two kids. So that's going to be your eventual path. But Brazil is a very interesting country. It's a lot of people don't realize that when you look at South America, more people speak Portuguese than Spanish, just because Brazil is so dominant in the region. And it is a tough environment for business, but of course, it's a large domestic market. It's a really vital, really interesting population. Great, nice, very nice people.
Was it
And
dangerous down there walking around? Because I
yes,
hear stories
yeah,
about
yeah,
like you
not
can't
so
drive
much.
up to the red light, and like if you
Yeah,
stop,
you know,
sometimes
you're, you know,
motorcycle guys come around with a gun and like
yeah.
give me your
Unfortunately,
money, forget about it. Is it true?
unfortunately, it is true, and it's more true now than it used to be. When I went down there, it was less so, and things progressively, got worse. It's one of the reasons why we left. Actually, suddenly we had kids, and we're like thinking about safety of our kids, and then so we left. It's sad because they're wonderful people. It really is what happens to a society when corruption becomes, just commonplace. So the political class completely, there's really lots of really built-in corruption. Of course, that means that resources aren't being applied. The rule of law gets weakened, and then the whole thing goes from the top down. So it is you have to be careful. Unfortunately, it's a place that you just have to be careful. Um, but
Like what kind of things are down there, Alex? What what would they do? What are the tricks?
Well, the things are your personal safety. In a place, well, first of all, because of the corruption, and everything else, and especially the inequality of income. So you have people. It really is a place of the haves and the have-nots, and the haves are a very small group. There's very little middle class, and there's this a very large impoverished part of society. So you live in your house. If you're a professional like us, you're going to be living in basically a gated community. And it's not gated community like there's a gate. It's gate, guards, guns, everything. You're in a fortress. Um,
And how
the
does it feel like living in something like that?
it's not great. You're always thinking about your personal safety because um, you know if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you have something they want, and you don't, it can easily turn into your death. Because there'll be a gun. It's the value of life is very low. You can almost everybody I know has some kind of story. They were out and about, and they were held up, right? And being held up is you have to be super careful because it's just a trigger away from, that's the end of you. I have friends who, one of their relatives went out to get a newspaper, did not come back. It's absolutely, and then you take a Brazilian out of that context, my wife, for example, and they carry this with them. So, your her sense of, at nighttime, should we walk here? We're in the some suburb United States, completely safe. We're, in Europe, even safer. And they just can't shake. It takes a long time to shake this concern about personal safety, right? Which is actually not only Brazil, but really common to a lot of places, especially in Latin America, unfortunately.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. And so, so you were down there 20 years. How did you get accustomed to it?
Well, 20 years is a long time. You definitely eventually even somebody like me will pick up the language. The and what we did down there was, just so the coincidence was we were there at the end of the 90s. The internet was beginning to really take off, the .com boom and everything. I know you're very much were a part of it as well. We were looking at what was going on in the U.S. So in 1994 or 95, I believe, essentially the Brazilian internet went online. They finally got their backbone, the minimum backbone in place, and that's when internet kind of started in Brazil, and we jumped on that wave. That's where you asked the question, how did I become a CTO? I had the programming experience. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy. It's my flow activity, and I had a colleague down there, and we started the first hosting company really in Brazil, and we transitioned early on into focusing on email. We became email provider for large telcos, et cetera, in Brazil, and that kind of got me professionally into email. So I've been with email for a long time, which 20 years later, wanting to come back to the U.S., we spun up mxHero, and the rest is the history that we're doing now.
So now, are you in Bethesda, or where are you?
Now, right now, I'm pushing our European expansion. So I'm actually in Cyprus right now, and that's of course by my last name, Panagides. We have family here. This was an easy spot to insert ourselves into the European context and help drive our European strategy.
And then what about how is it life over there for your wife and the food differences? Does she like
Yeah.
mestizo and moussaka and cortabiadas
Yeah.
and all that?
I mean, my two favorite cuisines are is the Greek and the Indian. I'm a fan of both, and it's just Greek food is. I mean, I think a lot of people would agree. It's good. It's not all lamb every day. I mean, there's a lot of the vegetable dishes, et cetera, like you said, moussaka and stuff. It's all excellent. The challenge of Cyprus, of course, it's a small place. I have to keep reminding my wife that we're not in San Francisco anymore. If you think about it, we had just moved to El Dorado Hills near Sacramento about 6 years before we came here. Still have our house there. That's our home. But by the time you went from there and drove 30 minutes, you've been through the population of Cyprus. Cyprus is barely a country in the sense that it has four cities. So she cannot expect, in that little population, sub 1 million, you need to run your State Department. You need to run defense. You need to do, all the things that, any other country needs to do. There's just not that many people. So she had some adjustment for that. But at the same time, small scale, certainly, personal safety is a given here. It's a great place to raise kids.
You can walk
It's
around at
also very
night, no problem.
walking night. I mean, zero. I mean, really, crime is zero. And I joke with my wife in part because it's an island. Like, where are you going to go? You're somebody's son. They'll find your mother and you'll be in trouble. So it's just it's a nice place. It's a small place, and of course, geopolitically, it's a very interesting place. You kind of think about it, the way the world is going. What's a safe spot? And you might consider Cyprus. Why? Huge Russian community. So that's kind of a odd. It would be difficult for Russia to. They have big interests here. Very huge English community because it used to be a colony. So there's actually three English bases here. Certainly American interests here. It's part of the EU. Yeah, it's kind of like a water hole. It's like everybody's got a piece of the island, as it has been historically. So it's kind of in the middle ground. So it's kind of like, in a way, it's no man's land, or maybe every man's land. So it's I think even geopolitically very interesting. And the fact that it's part of Europe is good for, of course. business, working with European customers, et cetera, because you're, part of um, part of the European community.
Now, do you live there and in Bethesda now, or not?
Splitting time, so definitely moving around. Yeah, our home is really El Dorado Hills, California, and but here we're committed here for as long as it takes to really get our European operations going. And because of the way the world has gone with regard to Zoom, et cetera, um, we can do this. Okay, yeah, I'm a few hours off, but no big deal. Most of my time is, pushed till later in the day, working with US customers, working with European customers. But, the digital native people, operating from anywhere in the world, wherever it's most convenient. Our team is distributed. We have, our CTOs in Valencia. We have a development team in Argentina. The head of our CEO is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Head of sales is in San Jose. So, welcome to the 21st century. Yeah.
So you went on and you did MX Solutions LLC and email enhancing solutions for service providers. So how did you progress? Then you went back to Anova as the chairman of the board, right? You're chairman there. Now,
Yes, yeah, yeah. So
how
we
does
exited out of, yeah, we've exited out of, we sold Innova. This is, that's the Brazilian context. And then the only thing left over from, really we've been focused on mxHero for the past 12 years. Did have, some board responsibility with Innova. However, we've transitioned out of that. What they share are they're both companies dedicated to email technologies, one form or the other. Um, and some of the people who I worked with at Innova, became co-founders of mxHero. And mxHero has been the heads down for the past. I think we incorporated in 2011. So, and really the aim of mxHero is looking at email as a technology and realizing that it's a core technology. I mean, it's almost as core as TCP/IP. It's the first thing you get when you're on the internet. In fact, it's your gateway to any service. It's how you authenticate yourself to your bank. But it's a technology that has so many challenges, right? It has security. It's one of the primary security vectors. It's a productivity drain. People constantly complain about it. But it's one of those things that people thought Slack might replace email, but that didn't really happen because what people don't realize, email has a quality that few other technologies has, and that is nobody owns it. It's a protocol, meaning there's no CEO of email, meaning you can it's like international waters. You can trust it. I mean, not everybody's going to use Facebook for their communications. They're not going to, are you going to trust the company? Maybe you should, maybe you should, but anyway, with email, you can come at it with your own systems, and you're just using the protocol. It's like having a common language. So it persists, but the idea of mxHero was to solve or make email, better. We saw the opportunity to make email better, and part of that vision, and goes back a while, is using email as a data source, right? And that was somewhat fortuitous on our part because what we did in the past several years is develop, hone, test, deploy a technology for the capturing of email content, right? Whether it's in flight, like your emails that you just sent, the emails you just received, or at rest, it's in your archives, it's been there for 10 years. Can we harvest that information and then apply analysis to it, right? And then along come AI, a technology perfectly attuned to human written language. And for us, this is a renaissance, right? I mean, this is we couldn't have asked for a better technology. It's for mxHero, this whole LLM AI, generative AI is not hype. If nobody had known about it and it existed and nobody cared about it, we would be using it because it's so vital to the substrate of what we work with. I mean, in an organization or probably in the world, there's no bigger chat technology than email. That's where all of our conversations are. That's
Well, I
where
mean, but the other thing is, Alex, we have this infobesity problem where we know,
totally,
people can't find their email. You say, I know that file exists. Where is it? Or I know that email exists, but I can't find it. And you've got
absolutely.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails, and this information overload challenge is something that needs to happen. I don't know where you are with it, but I see people moving from email to WhatsApp and then to Telegram. They're doing the same stuff, just trying to organize their conversations in a different way. And so using, like WhatsApp literally and setting up these, group chats. Now you get inundated with too many group chats.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't, you
it
don't know
just
what group
follows.
chats you have anymore.
Yeah, it probably is more of a human thing, right? We just talk too much, or I mean, will there be a technology to solve it? So the infobesity, absolutely. In fact, this is something that we just wrote an article. It's being published in Medium. I will share the link. I cite your work on infobesity. In fact, our internal review, just the word is such a rich word, and it's completely accurate, right? So infobesity is absolutely a problem, and so that is the whole point of the data analysis. So this article focuses on the ability of LLM AI to summarize content, and the problem is we are suffering this infobesity, right? And every company has you know tons of emails, like terabytes. So it's a security risk, and it's this big black box that's lost, and it's a shame because in that record, the email record, that's where you have all of the relationships, the ideas. If there's one place in the company that represents the soul of an organization, it's going to be in that email repository. But it's how would you ever go through it? So so the article is focusing on the ability of LMA to summarize, and it does a great job. And we're launching some tools to showcase. And you can do things like summarize, because you have email with a long exchange, the infobesity problem, too much, too big to really to absorb. It's just summarize, project X, everything that was talked about project last week, and there it goes. A beautiful bullet point summary, reducing the complexity. I mean, and this maps to us as humans. When we're summarization machines, we crave summarization. When you look at a tree, you don't look at the little leaves and the little branches or anything. You just look at the whole thing. Your brain is saying, "Oh, that's a tree," right? You're not going through the details. We need that summary, and the problem is email are all the leaves. If you think about all the threads and all the things, we need something to bring that all together. I think we're in a really, I mean, AI is going to do a lot of things for a lot of, and it is doing a lot of things for a lot of technologies, but for our communications, which is too much, way too much. It can be a huge, like an exoskeleton. It's just going to be one of these tools that just makes us able to do far more than we've
I've
been able
never
to do.
had it compared to an exoskeleton.
Right. Well, like this, yeah, it just makes you more powerful.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
now you're
yeah.
going to be able to approach your email with, this AI companion
Superpowers.
who's just going to clarify things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, it's kind of like your yaya that goes down through and is compassionate and emotive and takes care of you. Those kind of things. So you're like your grandma that loves you. It's important, and this next mode of coming up with these hyper intelligent tools that help us to be able to deal with a massive amount wherever that data is
Yeah.
critically important because we're in information overload. We don't know what we have, and in psychology they call it learned helplessness. When they would do these studies, and when there was so much information overload, so much stimuli, the actual animals would actually stop. They would actually freeze and not move.
That's
And
that's where we are.
that's where
Yeah.
we are. Like seriously,
Yeah.
I talked to
Yeah.
you. I said, how often do you check your email? I don't know, every 15, 20 minutes. It's
Yeah.
we get to the point because we can't find it. We're afraid of missing out, the fear of missing out factor, right? FOMO.
And it's linked to stress. They've actually linked this. It's not good for us. I mean, it's just simply
Well, it's
not
not.
good
What do
for
you
us.
do before you go to bed? Check your email, right? What
Yeah.
do you do
Yeah.
when you wake up
It's
in the morning? Check your email. If you get up in the middle of the night, what do? Check your email, right? It's kind of crazy.
And I mean, what is our natural state? You just roll back 100, 200 years. We're out in a field watching the grass grow. We're not, doing this crazy stuff every 2 minutes, new stimulus, new, inputs, new whatever. So we need help. We really do. We need a second brain, and really AI is here to do
We
that
need
for us, to help us be a tool.
superpowers.
We need
AI
superpowers, right?
superpowers, right? And that's what mxHero is going to do, is provide you with those superpowers. So you've got an incredible company. You've made a heck of a lot of progress. You're growing. You've been around the block a few years, so you see it from a whole lot of different perspectives. So Alex, you're going out there. We have a lot of entrepreneurs from all over the world watch our show. What words of advice would you give to them? You've been through it. You've been successful. But what words of wisdom would you give to them?
Yeah. Um, I can just based on my experience, but my experience is echoed in a lot of the literature out there, right? So, I'm certainly not the first to go through it, but I can tell you some of the mistakes that I certainly made. And one of them was, Gary, you recommended a book, and it's not a new book, but I find it enlightening, right? It's like one of these books that I wish I had picked it up. Yeah, I wish you had told me this like 10 years ago, which was the startup manual, right? If you're out there, you're going to be, you're launching your company. Don't don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? There is a body of knowledge out there that's really available. Just grab it, right? Yeah, and study it, because there's other people have been through this, and there are best practices. Um, and one of those best practices, I think that, and this certainly for startups in the technology space, especially with the engineering slant, um, building the better mousetrap trap. The thing, we'll build it and people will love it, right? Sales and marketing, especially marketing, are a much bigger deal than I had. I wish I had. Like when you start out of this book comes the idea that the development of the product 50% of the time, and the other 50% finding your market, right?
Well, that's
Basically
it,
finding
because
your
some
channel.
people, they never go out. Bob Dorff used to be the dean of my school that we had, and he's a good friend. He's been my friend for 25, 28 years. One of he says is you got to get out of the door and start talking to people. Ask questions.
Absolutely.
I used to go down, and I still do. I'll go down to University in Palo Alto, and I'll go up and say, "What do you think of this?" And I'll actually have my phone. I'll have my phone recording. I'll go down through and ask them if I can record, and I'll take my notebook and I'll show them what we have, and I'll get their opinion. What happens is, if not, that's how you go out of business, because you start developing things in a void with no feedback, right? Some of the kind is the same things we do in GST. Bring other people in, get a 360-degree view of where you are. The other thing you said, it's really important. There's really three pillars that you need: access to capital, networking contacts, and operational expertise. 90% of building a $1 billion company is storytelling. If you're a great storyteller where you can paint pictures with words and people feel your words, it's important. The other thing is you need to go online, just like you said. You got to create a presence. You got to have a lot of content out there, right? Out there so people can read it, because the first thing they do is they're going to check LinkedIn, update your LinkedIn profile so it reflects where you are today, you know. And those kind of things, like the keep it simple, stupid. These are the kind of things that each and everybody has to do. So we're coming up to the top of the show, Alex. So closing thoughts, and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm not hard to get in touch with. So definitely open doors. Part of that conversation, I would fully engage. Yeah, I would love to talk to anybody interested in anything that we're doing. Um, we are really pushing hard on our on the direction, right? Really the fulfillment stage two, I would say, of mxHero, which is going into once we capture the email content, bringing it in, making it useful. So, um, yeah. So, I mean, the contacts are there, LinkedIn, everything else, websites, whatever. Again, I'm not hard to reach. Would fully would enjoy talking to anybody who's has an idea or looking for some advice, or some of my gray hairs or missing hairs. Yeah, would definitely welcome that. So, great to be
Thanks for
here.
taking
Yeah.
time out of your busy schedule, Alex. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. And my name is Gary Fowler. I'm your host. Stay happy, Stay safe and stay healthy, and I will be back to you again with another exciting edition. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Alex. Take care of
Thank you.
yourself.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.